Hello everyone and welcome to the pond. My name is Frank, aka Bullfrog TCG, and today we are actually not playing Riftbound. Instead, this is going to be the first episode of a new series in which we talk about all the cards released in Origins and also the Proving Grounds box set. And I said we because in today's video I've gotten some help from the lovely Viggs over on Discord, so big thanks to him for helping me out on this one. And please let me know if you enjoy these kinds of videos. I mean, this is the first one I've done, and I'm really curious to see if you want more of this or if you want less of this. So please let me know that in the comment section below. And also, if you would just take the time to leave a like and subscribe, that would really help me as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. And without further ado, let's get talking. Okay, well, we are here to talk about every single card in Riftbound actually that's been released in the Origin set, and also the Proving Grounds cards. And we're going to tackle the Fury first, so all the red cards. And we're trying to get through this within like the hour, so we might not go as in-depth as we might be able to on some of the cards. But that is just to make this video not be like 2.5 hours long. So okay, we're starting off with the Blazing Scorcher. 5 energy, 5 might, accelerate. I mean, I think this is just like a good card. Like it's on rate, it's 5 for 5, which is like good numbers, and it has accelerate as well that you can kind of use if you need that extra aggression. So I think this is just, it's not amazing, it's not like terrible, it's just like on par, I feel like.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's an alright card. It's definitely playable. The dragon tag might be helpful or more helpful in the future. Definitely no power cost is nice for like a good mid-range style deck, but yeah, I think it's just mostly it's playable, but it's an okay card.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10.
I'm probably going to give it a 6, with the opportunity to go a little bit higher in the future.
Yeah,
with
that's fair
support.
Enough. Yeah, fair enough. All right, moving on to the Brazen Buccaneer. 6 energy, 5 might. As you play me, you may discard a card as an additional cost. If you do, reduce my cost by 2.
First impressions are not amazing. 6 energy for 5 might is kind of below raid. The effect of reducing the cost is nice, so 4 for 5 is definitely good. However, you are discarding a card, so the decks that want to use this typically are lower to the ground. Not usually what you want to be including on your top end. Yeah, it does have some discard synergies, but I think it's just an okay card.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like as you said, this card, like the decks that want to run the discard package typically don't want to run a card that costs like this much, and you don't really want to run this outside that. So it's it doesn't have a place in either field, I feel like. So I'm thinking like for like 1 out of 10 or like 1 through 10, I think I'm gonna give this like a 5.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 4 or 5 as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Chemtech Enforcer. 2 energy, 2 might, assault 2, and when you play me, discard 1. So this is what the discard decks does want. It only costs 2, so you can play it on turn 1. It does discard, so you get that synergy off, and at least like when you're discarding a discard payoff as well, you get some extra value. And it also has assault 2, so you can basically swing over anything that might have played out by the time you can attack with this. So yeah, I think this card is amazing in the deck that it's kind of meant to be played in.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point. I think it's great in the discard deck. It's an early game play that can attack on 4 on your first turn, which is great. Lets you discard, which hits your discard synergies, lets you flood the board, especially with the I always forget the name.
Yeah,
the red card lets you discard it.
Yeah, the flame chompers. Yeah.
Yes. So that's great. However, like you wouldn't run this necessarily in any other deck besides that deck, because discarding a card for nothing if you don't have the synergies is pretty bad. But in the deck it's printed for, I think it's a pretty good card.
Yeah, me too.
I'm probably going to give it like a 7.
7? Yeah, I think I can land on 7. I mean, the ceiling is not that high, which is why I'm not going above that, because like I think like 8, 9, and 10 is kind of reserved for the card that has a bit more utility than this. But just for the deck it's printed for, this is a really good card. So yeah, 7 I think is a good for this one. Alright, moving on to Cleave, our first spell. 1 energy, action, give a unit, assault 3 this turn.
Oh, Cleave. Yeah, I think Cleave's a great card. 1 energy is as low as you can go, besides 0. It's an action speed, so you can use it in combat. and also it gives Assault, which is +3, is pretty good for 1 energy, and it also, being so cheap, lets you synergize with a lot of the Legion effects that you find in red, and in other colors, and like yellow, and the classic Darius combo of being able to just play this ready Darius attack for 10. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a very cost-efficient card that is really great for decks that want to press a battleground.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you kind of nailed it on the head. It is. I mean, the fact that it also doesn't cost a power is so relevant because that is one of the things with all the Legion effects is that it can be tricky to get off sometimes. But just having this to buff up, I mean, whatever you have out at the battlefield already, just makes that really easy. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this. I think I'm gonna give this a 7 as well, just because 8, 9, and 10 I think is reserved for a bit different type of card.
Yeah, I was leaning towards 8, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably give it a 7 as well. Now that I think about it, because there are cards that are a bit more exciting
Yeah.
that come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 7 sounds good as well. 7 or 8.
Yeah. All right. And then this integrate 4 energy action, deal 3 to a unit at a battlefield. If this kills it, draw 1. Now, have you played around with this card any?
I have played a little bit. I have found some success with this card. I definitely feel like it's one of the cards that's kind of overshadowed by other similar cards. With limited deck space, you might want to lean towards those other cards, but in like a really heavy control list, this is feeling, it's just another option you can throw in your deck.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this card. I mean, the only deck you would consider running this in is like a really heavy like spell built Annie, because then you also do get the 2 extra runes at the end of the turn. So if you can keep 2 additional ones up, you can play this. And also with the Annie champion character, that makes this deal 4. But I mean, the big thing is that like if you want to deal 3 damage, you can instead run Hextech Ray, which costs 1 energy. And for 4 energy, you could do so much more. And you could also play a Void Seeker, which costs 3 energy, and it draws even though it doesn't kill it, and it also deals 4 damage. So this is just like it's kind of already power crept in the same set. But I think if you want to run a lot of spells, given that there's not that many spells printed yet, I think this is an include. But it's not the first card you want to include as a removal spell, I think. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna give this. I think I'm gonna give this a 5 or a 6. I'm gonna give this a 5 actually.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a 5 as well. I think you hit the nail on the head. There are other cards that are similar, like Void Seeker, which does a similar effect, does more, and you don't need to kill the unit. This feels like a card that reads really well, and then, like you said, gets power crept in the same set. So yeah, not costing a power is nice, but yeah, I think there's right now better options.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm probably going to give it a 5 as well.
Yeah. And here he is, the Flame Chompers. 3 energy, 3 might. When you discard me, you may pay 1 fury power to play me. Now this is the discard target you want to hit every single time, especially of the Chemtech Enforcers that we just looked at, because then you can, on turn 1, you can develop a Chemtech that can attack for 4, and this they can attack for 3, so that is 7 total might on turn 1. Which is very, very good. I mean, you don't really want to play this out for the energy cost. I mean, it is a 3 for 3, which is fine. But the real power of this card lies in the ability just being able to play it out for basically free. So yeah, I think this card is a very, very good card.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's specifically in the decks that are running the discard package. It's 3/3 with an upside. 3/3 at its floor is fine, right? If you have this in your hand and you're going second, you'll probably want to play this just to have something on the board. 3 might is good, on rate. But the real power is being able to discard it on your first turn, or anytime you are discarding cards for effects to offset that cost and to flood the board, get more might on the board every turn. Yeah, I think this is a really good card in those decks.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm gonna just for like the deck it's printed for. I think I can't go any lower than the 7 for this one.
Yep, exactly what I was thinking. 7 sounds right to me.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Get Excited. 2 energy, 1 power. Action, discard 1, then deal its energy cost as damage to a unit at a battlefield. Now, what do you think about this one?
Yeah. I love this card. However, I don't think right now it's very good. I played around with
Yeah.
this card a lot. One power is pretty costly in terms of like a damaging effect. Also because you are discarding another card, the action speed is great, and being able to just kind of like nuke something for only 2 mana is also really awesome. But that's the high end. Like at the floor, you have very low cost things, so it's almost like you're not able to use it. Um, on if you don't have something to discard that has cost a lot of energy, and a lot of the cards that you want to discard right now are cards that that would have a high are lower cost cards. So like the synergies are only really useful for like taking out small units, and I think the fantasy of this card is to like drop like an 8 cost card and like nuke something, right?
Yeah.
And because you are going -1, it feels like it's in this weird in between place. I can definitely see this card being really good in the future. I just think right now it's not the best removal option.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think like for now, the deck that wants to play this the most is like Volibear, when you play like the Aurora build, because then you play a bunch of huge units. But the problem is that that deck doesn't draw that well. So when you're discarding one of your cards that you'd rather want to play on curve as well to take care of something, it just doesn't feel like good, because this is one of those cards that's always kind of bittersweet when you play it out. And I think if Volibear, for example, gets better ways to draw cards, I think this could be very good, because then you're not as worried about kind of removing one of your threats, because you're always going to have another one in hand. But I think for now, as you said, I don't think the game is ready for this card yet.
Yeah. I do want to make an addendum. It could be kind of useful in Reanimator, right, where you're discarding a big unit, dealing a lot of damage, and then bringing it back. But Reanimator decks currently are kind of either unexplored or just aren't really up to par just yet. So we'll see in the future.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I'm going to give this a 6. I think 5 or 6. Definitely with the potential to go higher in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think a 6 is fine for this. And as you said, this could definitely go higher in the future. But as of now, I think that's where it sits. All right, moving on to Hextech Ray. 1 energy, 1 power, action, deal 3 to a unit at a battlefield. Now, we just talked about Disintegrate. That was 4 energy, deal 3 to a unit, and this is 1 energy, deal 3 to a unit. So this is exactly where you want to be with a red removal spell. This is just Lightning Bolt, just the classic red like deal 3 damage card. It does cost a power, which, I mean, if it didn't cost a power, I think this card would be a bit too good. And I also just like the fact that Riot printed all of these red removal spells as actions, not reactions, because that kind of balances them a bit out. But I think as far as when you want to include removal spells in your deck and you're playing red, I think this is the first one you go for.
Yeah, I think Hextech Ray is amazing. Yeah, it's versatile, like you said, action speed. Feels fair because of the power cost. Now in Kai'Sa, where it doesn't necessarily have the power cost, if that's where it starts feeling a little bit more oppressive. But that's I think more a Kai'Sa issue than this card issue. This is like probably the most atomic we're gonna find, like a 3 damage spell. It's 1 cost and 1 power. It's like it seems like this is the card that's setting like the general power level for all of the removal spells in set 1. At its most basic iteration, right? So yeah, I think that this is a great card. Not really much else to say.
Yeah,
I'm sure we've all seen it.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it, and we will probably keep seeing it as well.
Felt it.
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, I think this has to be like at the top of, I mean, by the kind of definitions we're going off now, this has to be at like the top of 7.
Yeah, I'm thinking top of 7 or 8. I think I'm comfortable giving this an 8.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, let's just go for an 8. Let's just give this an 8, open that up. All right, moving on to Legion Rearguard. 2 energy, 2 might, accelerate. Now, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think this is also a really good card in terms of 2 drops. In red, this is definitely one of, if not the better ones, if not the best one. Just 2 for 2 is on rate, and then the upside of being able to accelerate it, being able to kind of attack from your hand when you don't have anything on the board is really powerful. Keeps it safe, right? And then being able to just for only 1 extra energy and power to be able to just kind of come and hit a battlefield, grab a point. Definitely like it gives it use even in the late game where normally 2 drops are kind of useless. So then that's great. Decks you want to play it in also generally more aggressive decks, so that's also really good. Lets you play this on turn 2 to immediately, if you're going second rather, to immediately grab a point. If you want to, play super aggressive, say against like Aurora or something. Yeah, I think this is a really good card.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I disagree with you. It is just a very, it's a very red card. It has like, and it's very like, I think it's very like cleanly designed. It is like you can play it out on turn 1 to just have something, and then if you draw it later, you can accelerate it to get some more aggression. And I think that's part of the power of red, is just being able to attack from the hand, basically, to attack into a battlefield from the hand. So yeah, I think this card is really good. So yeah, I'm gonna give this as a 7 as well, I think.
Yeah, 7 sounds good to me.
Yep. Alright, and then Magma Worm. 8 energy, 1 power, 8 might. Other friendly units enter ready. Now, this card seems like it's insane, and the ability, of course, is insane, but the problem with this is that it's so slow. Like, you pay 8 energy to play this out, and then it doesn't do anything once it enters, because usually you want to pair this with like big units that you can swing with right away, but since you're paying so much to get this out, you usually can't play something else out in the same turn, unless you're cheating it out, and as of now, there's not that many ways to do that. So I think in the current meta, I think this card is just, it reads amazing, but I think it's just way too slow to do what it's kind of intended to.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like the big point being, like, if you can in the future cheat this out, then I can see this being amazing. But right now, it's just you don't even really have the opportunity to play something else in the same turn with it, like even a small unit, because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
So, and like by that time, you really want to play something that has an immediate impact on the board. If you think of Snapvine, not Snapvine, sorry, Dreadbone Predator, or the White Flame Dragon, like those have immediate effects as you play them for the same amount of mana, but slightly less power. But I think that you really want to have like an impactful thing, especially at that state of the game. So yeah, I'm thinking of giving this like a 3 or a 4. Again, if there's some really good cheat mechanisms that let you take advantage of being able to play a bunch of stuff in the same turn, I think that this will definitely go up. But right now, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think I'm comfortable giving this a 4 as well. Yeah. All right. Nox is hopeful. 4 energy, 4 might. Legion, I cast 2 less.
Yeah. What's strange about this card is that like it looks kind of like average just by reading it, but in practice it's really, really good. 4 for 4 is on rate, but the Legion effects cost 2 less. In the decks that you're going to be running this are typically more aggressive / mid-rangey decks, and just being able to get like a 4 might body in the same turn as dropping another like 2 or 3 might body is like really strong. Being 4 might is like a nice breakpoint doesn't die to the 3 damage spells that you find. It just adds a bit of bulk to your board that for really relatively cheap. The Legion cost isn't even, the Legion effect is like, it's not even really it's not really like a hindrance, because like you're reducing the cost anyway. So like kind of like you just look at it as a two drop if you have another card to play, which is great. And also, like, if you really needed to play a 4 for 4, it's definitely not great, but it doesn't cost you power, which is typically a lot of 4 cost units will have cost for power. So that's also nice. I think this is a pretty good mid-range aggressive card deck.
Yeah, I agree.
Mid-range aggressive deck card.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And like this kind of, it's kind of similar to Chemtech Enforcer in that it attacks for 4, but the big strength of that is defense for 4 as well. So it's usually, when you get it out, if you get it out on turn 2, for example, it's usually going to be able to hold as well and going into the following turn. So I think this, like, if you compare this with, as you said, like a 2 might or a 3 might unit on turn 2, for example, and you compare it off with this, that is just some really, really good aggressive tempo. And I think this card does exactly what that deck wants. Which is just to develop aggressively, but also have a bit of bulk as well to kind of sustain some of that damage is going to be dealt to. So yeah, I think this card is really, really good. Yeah. So what are you thinking for the point score or the score?
This is going to be an 8, I think, for me.
Yeah.
7 or 8, but probably I'm being leaning towards 8.
Yeah, I agree. 8. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Alright, moving on to the first Poro. Pouty Poro, 2 energy, 2 might, deflect. Now, this doesn't seem that good, and I mean it's not an amazing card. It is a good 2-drop, but it's when you play against this and you have a deck that is very interactive with a lot of like abilities and spells. This card is so annoying to deal with, because having to play that deflect to get rid of this little thing is just, it feels so bad. So this is it's more like an annoying card instead of like a really powerful card, but that annoyance definitely like shines through, I think.
Yeah, I think like the power from this card is like it's very obfuscated by like just like the game state, right? You're damaging your enemy's economy, and for certain decks that's really powerful, and against other decks not so much, right? But great against like Kaisa, who's doing a lot of direct damage spells. Is like they're also generally always ahead on economy, so being able to bring them down in resources to your level just by having this card out definitely helps. I do think it's like against Yi though, or like it doesn't really do anything. It's just a 2 for 2. It
Yeah.
doesn't really target your stuff. Generally, I mean, they might charm it, but I think they get more value out of charming something else than this anyway. Um, but yeah, so I think it's like it's a decent card. It's definitely a good card. It's one of the only like 2-drops for red.
Yeah.
So definitely you want to hit the 9 2-drops. Um, it's like one of your better options.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards like giving this a 6 actually.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 5, just a
Okay.
little bit lower. I think it's like it's a good card, but I also don't like. It's not like super impactful. It's only super impactful in very certain matchups,
Yeah.
and those matchups are already ones that like already have a lot else going for them. So this is like it's like I'm not sure how much it moves the needle.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I agree. I'm gonna give this a 5 as well. You kind of convinced me. Yeah, 5 for Padiporo. Okay, moving on to Sky Splitter. 8 energy, 1 power. Action. This spell's energy cost is reduced by the highest might among units you control, and then deal 5 to unit at a battlefield.
I like this card a lot. I think that I don't. It definitely has like a low floor, right? Where it's like, okay, if you don't have any units, it costs 8 in a power, which is insane. 5 damage. But as soon as you have a unit, being able, even if it's just a 5 might unit, which is typically the breakpoint you're trying to hit, like you'll generally find this in Volibear decks, right? Like, and just because of like being able to play higher might units, I think that this is being able to cast something for like 3 in a power to deal 5 at action speed is pretty decent. And the build draw and like is the fantasy of being able to cast it for free. So if you are, it adds like a whole dimension to the game that you have to account for. Where if you're playing against somebody that has a high might unit of at least 8, typically this would be a Volibear or Aurora deck, a Volibear Aurora. You have to keep in mind that like, okay, at any time they can play this like card for free, even if they're fully tapped out. So that in itself is really powerful. I think that again, as more cards are released, this will probably get better in the future as there are more high might units to take advantage of. And I really like the design of the card. So I think it's like right now it's like it's good when it's good, and it's like kind of bad when it's bad. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think like as you said, the real power of this spell comes from the fact that it's kind of like the call to glory in the buff decks, where you kind of have a spell that you can play while being tapped out, and that is something that your opponent kind of has to know about and kind of play around. But as you said, it is played in one deck as of now specifically, and it's basically useless in every other deck. So for that reason, it's not going to go as high as it could, but for what it does in the deck that it's played in, I think this card is amazing. So yeah, I think I'm going to give this, just for what it does for the deck it's meant to be played in, I think I'm going to give this a 7.
I was going to give it a 6 just because I think that floor is, it's pretty rough. I think like even if you just have one unit out, it's like a 6, which is still kind of not on rate generally, 6 or 7. But yeah, I definitely like this card, so I definitely could see this in the future being pretty great. But right now, I'd probably give it a 6.
Yep. All right. Captain Farron, 4 energy, 1 power, 5 might. Other friendly units here have assault. I think one of the problems with this card is just that it's a bit too slow for what it does. Like when you play it out, you can't activate it right away, and then on the following turn you also can't use it because then all of your other units are probably going to be at the battlefield, and unless you play out something that's accelerated, then you can use it. But then even then, it's only giving like 1 or 2 units assault, which is not that good. I mean, because it doesn't even give him self assault. I mean, he is a 5 for 4, which is, I mean, it's a good rate in that way. But I think for 4 energy, you could do much more than this, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like at first glance, this card sees like when you read it, it's like, oh, that seems pretty good. But then you start thinking about the actual implications in game. Playing 4 and a red for 5 is good, but then you also, to take advantage of the effect, you have to have other units, and you also have to wait a turn. So it has to not die, and you have to have other things to play. And generally, by that time, if you're playing something on turn 2, this on turn 2, you already have something, or you want to have something on a battlefield, right? So then it really aren't even able to take advantage of the effect unless you're holding this back. So it's like a weird, awkward timing for like if you're playing this on curve.
Yeah.
And it's really like only decent for the alpha strike, right? Which is okay when like an aggressive deck, but I feel like there's like just better ways to spend your mana. I think currently in red. Yeah, so
I agree.
I'm probably going to give this like 4,
Yeah,
or
I agree.
5, 4 or 5. Like it's like you could find success with this, but I also don't think it's like it's just like a weird, awkward card.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna land on a 4 for this as well. So, moving on, we are looking at the Dangerous Duo. 3 energy, 3 might. Legion, when you play me, give a unit +2 might this turn.
Yeah, so this card, 3 might for 3 energy, standard rate. The weird thing about it is that it requires Legion, right? I think this is a good effect, but I don't think this necessarily needed the Legion, as I'm pretty sure we had talked about in the past. Yeah, it's just like it feels weird to take advantage of the effect. You have to play at least one other card, which at minimum is like a 1 or 2, right? So you're generally, if that's the case, you aren't playing this. Like if you play this on your turn 1, you generally aren't able to attack with it, right? So it just feels like it's a weird timing thing as well. The one thing that is interesting is that it is a mech, so in the future there might be certain mech synergies that are particularly interesting. But I think currently, right now, it's like just not particularly useful. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's terrible, but I also don't think I would put this in my deck over other choices.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I mean, the big problem is the Legion. Like, I think without Legion, this could be pretty good because it is just, I mean, on rate, and then you just boost something up to go for a bit of a bigger attack on the turn you play it out. But also, it is going to be interesting to see because, like, the Rumble legend that is coming in the next set is apparently it does have synergy with like mechs and gears, as far as I understand. So this might have some place there because that is a red and blue legend. But for now, yeah, I don't think this is the first card you put in your deck. So yeah, what are we landing on?
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 as well. Rumble depending, I would say. Like this might go up in the future, but for now, yeah, 4 I think is good. But okay, Iron Ballista, 3 energy. This enters exhausted, and it's a gear, and it has exhaust, deal 2 to a unit at a battlefield. Now, I really like this card. I think it's so comfortable to have this card out to just be able to deal with your opponent's small stuff. I mean, it doesn't stop your opponent from conquering, but it does stop them from holding, and it does make it really awkward to attack in with, for example, cards like the Wielder of Water in Master Yi, or the Ravenbloom Student, and like all the 2-drops, like the Stalwart Poro, for example, like all these 2 might units that kind of want to get bigger through the combat. I think this is really good to deal with that, but the big problem is that it does enter exhausted, so you kind of have to wait a turn. You have to take a turn off when you play this out, and then use it afterwards, and then your opponent can kind of play around that. But just having this one out it feels really comfortable to just have that extra damage to like kind of combo with, for example, a Warwick or another removal spell, or just to breakpoint some attack and like some attack swings. So for that reason, I think it's good, but it is. You don't really want to see. I mean, when you draw the third one, you're kind of like, okay, well, I mean, this, because the problem with the card is that it doesn't win you the game. It just kind of ups your chances of doing so.
Yeah, I think this card is. I like this card as well. It's good. However, it is slow. It enters exhausted, and also if you're spending your first turn on going second, developing this instead of a unit, it means your scoring tempo is going to be a lot slower. Though the two edit unit to a battlefield is good, though there are ways to play around it. Just not sending only sending very one unit at a time, or something you don't really care about dying. So you can kind of get around that a little bit. It is helpful for trading up into like Yi's passive. So essentially, it like negates Yi's like 2 might passive. I mean, they still have the might, but at least you're able to trade into things a little bit easier. But yeah, I can see this doing pretty well in the future for like definitely like slower oriented like control decks. But right now, it's just like it's okay. You can find success with it or as a sideboard option. But I also, I'm kind of mid on this card.
Yeah, and I think and two things to note. I think is also that just now in the meta where there are a lot of like Dazzling Aurora around, there are also like people are running gear removal, and they just like casually hit this as well, which is kind of bad. And also it does get better when you play it in like Annie, because Annie says like the Annie champion says that she buffs both spell damage and ability damage. So in that case, this deals 3, which makes it hit a whole bunch of other units that it wouldn't naturally have dealt with. So that does make it a bit better, but the fact that it comes in exhausted is quite a big drawback, I think. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give this I do like the card, so I'm going to give it a 6.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 as well, because I also like the card. I could see it go down to 5 if, like, I didn't have a personal bias.
Yeah. All right, we're looking at Noxus Saboteur. 3 energy, 3 might. Your opponent's hidden cards can't be revealed here.
3 energy, 3 might is on rate. The effect is fine. I think there are probably better ways to deal with hidden cards, or to stop your opponents from playing hidden cards. This, at best, I would see as a sideboard option. But even then, I don't know how much this moves the needle. It means you have to get it onto the board and then have to keep it there, right? Or like if you're attacking into it and like an enemy, it's like sure they might not be able to play their hidden cards. They can still play cards from their hands. It's only particularly useful in like against certain cards, like a Hidden Blade or something, or a Teemo. But it's okay. Like I don't really see this being like something that really moves the needle in those matchups. So I don't know if I would actually even side it.
Yeah, I think for now, like the big problem is that it just doesn't hit enough decks. Like if you're like local metas filled with Teemos, and this becomes amazing because it's gonna get you value every game. But like as far as hidden cards go, there are so few of them now that for now I just don't think this is worth it to play over other cards that you could also play in that slot. So yeah, I think for that reason I'm just like for now I'm just gonna give this a 2 or a 3. Actually, I think I'm gonna give this a 3.
Oh wow. 3. Yeah. Wow. I was gonna say a 5, but yeah, okay. Maybe a 4 is probably more appropriate for me. I think that like it's definitely playable, right? And it's like I don't think it necessarily. It really is just the opportunity cost that hurts you. I think that you could also have something fill the same slot with something that's more impactful.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say that I give it a 3 now, but that is just because it's so. It doesn't hit enough decks in the current meta, so like you never really want to play this instead of other cards. But if the meta develops more into like a very hidden focused deck meta, then this could for sure become better. But for now, yeah, I think 3 is okay for me. Okay, moving on to Raging Soul. 4 energy, 4 might. If you've discarded a card this turn, I have Assault and Ganking. So this is another discard payoff, but I think the problem with this is that it's a bit too slow, and it's also like to get the ganking, you kind of have to either pair it off with like First Mate, for example, to be able to restand it. That could be nice, but then you also have to have something to discard a card. So unless you're attacking into like the Zon Warren's battlefield, that kind of discards a card when you conquer there. You kind of have to pair. I mean, it just requires too much build run, I think, and I think the payoff for doing so is just not big enough.
Yep, totally agree. I think Assault and Ganking are great keywords, but you do have to discard a card, so you generally only want to use this with something that you are like kind of cheating the effect of the discard, where you're getting some benefit out of it. And generally, the timing of when you would do that is maybe not super useful for ganking. It means they have to be already on a battlefield or you readied it. The 4 for 4 is good. I think that's like not costing power 4 is like a pretty good thing. But we're gonna find another card that's 4 for 4 with no power that's significantly better.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that this is not particularly great. But I think like you might find some success with it, but not. I personally wouldn't include this over other cards.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think for that reason, I'm just gonna give this a. I feel a bit harsh today, so I am gonna give it a 4. I think.
Yeah, I'll probably give it a 4 as well.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to Scrapyard Champion. 5 energy, 1 power, 5 might. Legion. When you play me, discard 2, then draw 2.
Yeah, this is a kind of a weird card, right? 5 and a power for 5 is not great. Also, it has a Legion ability, which means to get it, you also have to play something else in the turn, which at 5 energy is like means it generally will be something of a weaker unit and something, or like a spell, and also it needs you'll have to have like a higher mana cost. So it means this is only occurring later on in the game. Discarding 2 and then drawing 2, filtering is always good. However, and also if you don't have cards, you'll be able to just kind of draw 2, which is great. That is really appealing. But again, if you want to play this in a discard oriented like synergy deck, right now those decks are typically lower to the ground, where this, even at the top end, is probably not amazing, because you're generally going to be finishing the game at that point, not like refilling your hands. And also, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I think it is a mech, so again, barring some crazy synergies in the future with mechs, I'm not super high on this card.
Yeah, I agree, and like I think this is the same thing as with the duo. Is like it doesn't really require Legion. I think if this didn't have Legion, this could actually be pretty good, because as you say, if this is your only card in hand and you play it out, you just get to draw 2 cards, which is of course amazing. But I think both having a power cost and the Legion, I think, is a bit too much for this one. And if you want like cards to discard, then there are better options as of now to get that off of. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a 5 as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5.
Yep. All right, we are looking at Sundisk. 2 energy, 1 power, gear, exhaust, Legion. The next unit you play this turn enters ready.
Yeah, this card I think is actually pretty good. I think it's like a bit, people are starting to like realize it's got some pretty interesting uses. It's pretty cheaply costed for what it does. The 1 power is a bit might set you back a little bit early, but I think because this counts as a card you play, you're actually able to use this to trigger the Legion, so you're able to kind of immediately use it, which is good. After that turn, like you'll have to trigger Legion to get it, which might be tends to be a little bit awkward, because you have to like play a card, trigger the Legion, play it, and then play another card, another unit rather. But being able to just kind of like essentially give any of your units accelerate from hand is like super strong, and it's another layer that your opponent has to deal with in terms of like trying to play around you, which is like super like that alone is like super impactful. Like not knowing like, okay, any unit they play can come and hit a battlefield, so now I have to try to think about what units they might play, and I don't have time to play around it. So I do like this card. Probably you only want to run like maybe 2 max, because it's not a card that you really want to like flood the board with, because you definitely need the units to pair it with. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good card.
Yeah, I agree. And also it could be an interesting synergy to play this in Darius Hook, because then you always get the Legion off with 1 energy, which could be pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, the effect is of course incredible. I mean, just having something enter ready is good, but I mean, the big payoff, or the big cost, I guess, is that you have to trigger Legion to do so. But I think without that, I think this card would just be too good. But yeah, I think this card is good, and I think it's just going to get better in the future as well, as we get more tools to work around with it. So yeah, what are you landing on for a score?
I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, I think I can give it a 7 too. So, looking at Thermo Beam, 5 energy, 2 power, action, kill all gear. Now I think this, I mean, it is a board wipe, but the problem is that it's only for gear. But I mean, as we've talked about before, the next set we do get Rumble, which apparently does synergize with both gear and mechs. So if that's the case and we go into a meta where there are a lot of gears, this could become very powerful, but as of for now I just don't think it does enough, and it's way too expensive, because you do want to run gear removal for stuff like the Dazzling Aurora, but there are way better options than this, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's incredibly expensive. Generally the big target for gear removal right now is Aurora, and I mean, you're still technically trading up into it, but they already get the effect off if they don't enter a battlefield, which usually they don't in the same turn they play it. That's the only way to kind of make use of the action. In a world where gear, more gears are prevalent, I think this is really good, or maybe just good. But right now, it's definitely not particularly great. I also there isn't really any other gear removal in red though, so that is the another one thing that this has going for it. But generally, you kind of, if you're paired with a color that doesn't have, that doesn't have strong gear removal, then maybe I can see using this. But I feel like most of the color pairs have at least something that is better than Thermo Beam.
Yeah, I agree. So for that reason, I think as of the current meta, I'm just gonna give this. I think I'm gonna give this a 2, because you never want to play this as of now. I mean, it might be good later, and I think it's interesting that they printed this card in set 1. So it's gonna be interesting to see if this gets more play later. But for now, I think just because of, I mean, no one plays this card, and you don't really want to play it because there are better options, as you said. So for that reason, I'm just gonna give it a 2.
I think I'm going to give it a 3. Yeah, probably it definitely has its uses. You could use it, not great, but it is something that can get rid of Aurora right now in red. So it's it has that going for it. So I'll go with yeah.
All right. Moving on to Unlicensed Armory. 2 energy, gear. Discard 1 and exhaust. Choose a friendly unit. The next time it dies this turn, you may pay 1 Fury rune or 1 Fury power to recall it exhausted instead.
I actually really like this card. I've actually been experimenting with this card. It's a great cost for what it does. It lends into the discard synergies. I've been running this in my Jinx deck, and it essentially helps you just be very aggressive. It lets you essentially give a free set effect when you attack, specifically only on attack, which definitely limits it a little bit. But being able to buff up or swing in with Darius. With this, take out something on a battlefield, let it die, it comes back and recalled, exhausted, and then play a second card, readies him. Now he's a 7 and he can go attack again, is really strong. And also you're able to do something similar with the purple Jinx. So I've been playing around with that a bit. I think it's specifically useful in aggressive decks that really want to pressure battlefields with attacks.
Yeah, I agree. I think this card is really good, and I mean the big downside, I guess, is that you do get a lot of protection on the aggression, but this doesn't do anything on defense, and you can't. And it does say this turn, so even though you could technically use it on a unit that is just sitting on the battlefield, that effect is not going to trade into the opponent's turn. In which case, this card would get a lot better, but it does have some nice synergy, as you said, with the Darius and the Jinx. And I think this also is one card that you kind of have to be on the lookout for in the future. Because I think it is going to get more cards to synergize with it, and in that case, when you do get more consistency in the deck that this is played in, I think this is going to get even better.
Yeah. For that reason, I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, I think I can give it a 7 as well, actually. All right, okay, we are looking at Void Seeker. 3 energy, 1 power, action, deal 4 to a unit at a battlefield, and draw 1. Now this is just what the Disintegrate wishes that it was. This costs 3 and it deals 4, which is already great, and it also draws you a card regardless of whether you kill the unit or not. So this is just along with Hextech Ray, as far as action speed damage spells go, this is as good as it gets, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how much time we want to spend on Void Seeker. Just amazing card. It's free in Kaisa with no power cost, essentially. Being able to play it during a combat with action speed is great. Stealing 4 to a unit is great, and also you get to draw a card to replace it, even if you don't kill the unit, and that's pretty amazing. I think this all around amazing card.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I'm going to give this an 8 as well.
Yeah. Okay, Blind Fury. 4 energy, 2 power, spell, action. Each opponent reveals the top card of their main deck. Choose one and play it, ignoring its cost, and then recycle the rest.
This is purely a multiplayer card. It's expensive for a random effect, right? You don't know what you're going to get. And so you could get something that is worth less, right? And then now it's actually one of the worst cards in the game. But or you can just like high roll and get something really nice. It is better in that with the as the number of players go up, so you're able to have more choices and more opportunity to hit something good. So it's definitely a fun multiplayer card. I don't think it's particularly great. It's not good in 1v1, and in multiplayer it seems like more of a fun card than it is a a good card. I also can see like if you're able to stack your deck with something on top, all right, and then play this, that to make it more consistent, to cheat out something. But even that's still a pretty heavy mana investment, an energy investment rather, to do this. So I don't think this is a good card, but it is a fun card.
Yeah, I agree. I think for now, as you said, it is just a multiplayer card, and in the future when we get more consistency, this could also be good in single player. But for now, it's just not. We don't have the tools to make this good in single player yet, I think. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a. I mean, for what it does in multiplayer, I think it's really cool. But it, like when it hits, it really hits. So when it doesn't hit, it just feels so bad because you're also playing 2 power to do so. So you're kind of setting yourself back a turn as well. So for that, I think I'm gonna give this a 5.
Wow, I'm going to give this a 2.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, like multiplayer being maybe a 4.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, yeah, I'll join you on the 4. All right, Brinner Thundersong, 6 energy, 5 might. When you play me, opponents can't play cards this turn.
6 energy for 5 might is not great, but it doesn't cost power, which is good. Though the thing is that when you play this, this effect triggers, and your enemy can actually, if they have reaction speed spells, can actually respond and react to this trigger. So they actually can like almost negate the effect if they wanted to play reaction spells preemptively, right? And generally you want to play this on like a really impactful turn where you're going to be able to attack a battlefield, but just like the enemy it still gives the window your enemy a window to play things, which I think like kind of goes against the spirit of the card, which is really funny. So it like I feel like because of that, it's not that great. If they didn't have the ability to react at all, then I think that would be it would be much better. But I think this card is only okay.
Yeah, I think so too, and it is. I mean, it really depends on the deck you play against. But I mean, in the meta with a lot of Yi and a lot of hidden cards, because you can react with the hidden cards as well, this becomes significantly worse because your opponent, as you said, can just kind of dump their hand, and then you're left to deal with whatever they had. But if they don't have anything to react to this, and they only have like damage spells and the action speed spells, and this becomes very good. But for that reason, that it's not as reliable as you might think just looking at this card for the first time. I think it's a lot worse than I thought it was in the beginning. So yeah, where are you landing on this one?
I'm gonna give this a 5.
Yeah, I think I can agree with a 5. All right, Darius Jafarian, 5 energy, 1 power, 5 might. When you play your second card in a turn, give me +2 might this turn and ready me. Yeah, the Darius. I mean, yeah, this card is amazing. It is a 5 for 5, which is not bad, and it also is the Darius champion, so you could always have this ready. But the real power, as you said earlier, lies in the fact that you can pair this up with Cleave, because then you're gonna play this out. It's a 5, and then you play Cleave on it. It gets a 3, and then it also gets a 2 plus itself, so you can attack with a 10. So you get a 10 attacks or 10 might swing for 6 energy, which is really really good. And also, like, you have some scenarios where you can kind of, if you're holding a battlefield with this, you can move it back to your base and then play 2 cards and then make it ready and then attack into the other battlefield. So this is a very versatile and aggressive card like that, but it also has the power to kind of, because you can do this defensively as well. If you have like 2, for example, removal spells or just buff spells, and on your opponent's turn, this also gets that +2 might buff, which could also come in handy. So I think this card is really really good.
Yeah, this card's amazing. One of the best red cards in the game right now, And I think that like you said, if you're playing Darius, being able to just have this as you're like in the pocket at all times is great. Makes your opponent have to play around that. But yeah, this card is like just super strong. It lets you pressure battlefields in from your hand in pretty profound ways.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this. I mean, I have to give this an 8. I think.
Yeah, I think this is an 8 as well.
Yeah. All right, Draven Showboat. 5 energy, 1 power, 3 might. My might is increased by your points.
Yeah, Draven. This is actually, I think, a pretty good card. Definitely in the decks that you want to play this, especially like Kai'Sa or like Jinx or the Darius Hook decks. Like it definitely it lets you just get something beefy on the board, right? And it scales into the late game. As you're getting closer to a win, it just kind of lets you get over the hump of like getting that last double conquer or last hold. Obviously 5 and a power for 3 is not great, but generally when you play this, you're gonna have at least 4 points, on average. So it's usually like a 5 and a power for 7. And especially in Darius, where it's particularly good, is you're able to cheat it out with Hook. You sack something has only 2 power, and then you get this guy out. And rather than being 3 power, it's like a 7, 8, 9. So it's like it's like a huge swing. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good card.
Yeah, I agree. And like as you said, this is. It almost feels like cheating to get this out in the Darius Hook deck, because it's only 3 might written on the card, and then you play it out with like 6 points, and then it becomes a 9 might unit all of a sudden. And I mean, but I mean, it is for 5 might. You can only really play this in the late game, and it is kind of slow unless you pair it up with something else. But just the ability is certainly really good, and in the decks you play it in, just can really take advantage of this, because when you're like going for the winning points, this becomes like a 10 might unit, which is really, really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.
Yeah, I think 7 is good for me as well. All right, Falling Star. 2 energy, 2 power. Do this twice. Deal 3 to a unit. Now this card is, in my opinion, if any card was to be like in the consideration for getting a ban, I think it's probably gonna have to be this one. I mean, it's already good in every red deck because it's just deal 3 damage twice, and it's so flexible because you can deal 3 damage to 2 different units, or you can deal 6 damage to 1 unit. And I mean, the big kind of downside of this is that you have to pay deflect twice if you want to target something with like a Kiana, for example. You have to pay the deflect twice because it does the ability twice. So that is kind of a downside, and it is pretty expensive with a 2 power. But when you play this in Kai'Sa and you can play this for 1 power, this card is just incredible.
Yep. This card sucks. No, it's definitely consideration for one of the best cards in the game right now. It just warps the meta around it. It changes how you have to play. You can't just like develop 2 turns of like something on the back line, because then your enemy can just play this and take away 2 of your turns essentially, and you're at that point you're just so far behind. I think that like the 2 power is an actual real cost for decks to pay, right? But if you're getting ahead, if you're taking out 2 of your opponents like early turns, it's your kind of pays for itself, because you're generally ahead because you can play something else in the same turn as this. Almost like a reset where you get ahead. But in Kai'Sa it's really strong because she only has to recycle 1. So she's able to just kind of like super like pressure battlefields from your hand, and then also just blow up your backline or blow up a big unit. Like it can get, there are some ways to play around it, but generally the ways you're playing around it are still like net negative for you. So it's just super strong card. I'm going to give this probably a 9 or a 10. Like maybe this is just the 10. Maybe this is like our ceiling, because this is a card that is like just so meta warping.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is definitely a 9. I think this is a 9 for me. I mean, it can't get any lower than that. And I mean, as I forgot to mention, the real power of this card is that it can hit stuff off the battlefield, and it also is very efficient to kind of get through Zhonya's Hourglass, because you can target the same unit twice, and even if it gets saved by the Hourglass, it's still the second damage also goes through to kind of finish it off. So yeah, this card is just incredible. But okay, let's move on to Jinx Demolitionist. 3 energy, 1 power, 4 might, accelerate, and salt 2. When you play me, discard 2.
Yeah, I think this card is good. It's a really strong attacker, right? It's a 6 attack for 3 might, which is great. 3 energy and a power. It does have the option of being accelerate, and it also can be your partner champion for Jinx, right? And obviously the downside is that you have to discard 2 cards. But if you are playing the Jinx deck, you generally have synergies with discard, like the aforementioned Flame Chompers or card that lets you draw Scrap Heap.
Yeah, Scrap
So like there are ways to, and also the Phoenixes too, right? You might, or you like put these in the and Phoenix and Rocket where you like don't really care if they're in the trash that much. So I think that like you definitely should still be mindful of discarding cards that you're not getting the benefit from, because like going -2 is still not a great thing, but you can recoup your costs with the Jinx Legend as well. So I think this card is pretty strong in the Jinx deck. I don't know if I would play this in any other deck though, any other red deck currently.
Yeah, I agree. It's incredible in Jinx, but you don't really want to play it in anything else because the cost of discarding 2 is only ever good if you play a dedicated discard deck, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 7 for this one.
Yeah, I agree. 7 is good. Okay, a Raging Firebrand. 6 energy, 1 power, 4 might. When you play me, the next spell you play this turn costs 5 less. Now, this is a very interesting card, and I think this is one that you also have to be kind of wary of in the future. And also one thing about this is that it is a dragon, so it can be paired off with the kind of dragon discount card. So you can play this out for 4 and then play a spell that costs 5, so you're kind of you're doing like 9 energies worth of power for like 4 energy, which is of course very good. But I mean, the thing is that you do have to have a spell that costs 5 and kind of to get the maximum value out of it. But for now, I think this card is just a bit too inconsistent to see real play. But I think it is definitely one that you have to watch out for in the future.
Yeah, totally agree. Dragon Tag is nice. The effect is strong. It is pretty expensive for the might that you're getting. But yeah, I don't know if it does require too much setup right now. Though if there are like particularly strong synergies in the future, I can see this like being decently strong.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think for now I'm just gonna give this a 5. I think it's just in the middle of the tree, I think.
Yeah, I'll give it 5 as well.
Yep. Alright, Ravenborn Tome. 3 energy, gear, exhaust. The next spell you play deals 1 bonus damage.
Let's see. I haven't really played around with this one too much, or have I played against it. It is a little slow, right? But I do think that there might be some value in like a gear-centric deck or a like really slow spell heavy deck where you're able to just generate a lot of value over time, 1 bonus damage. I think it really comes down to like where the breakpoints are. Like 4 to 5 is, I'm not sure how impactful 5 damage is. Also, being able to hit Falling Star for 4 damage each is pretty strong. Being able to single hit a Keanu, Kaisa, or things like that. But again, I feel like this is like only going to be C play right now, at least in like a slow spell oriented decks, and we haven't really seen too many of those.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how to rate this. I think like it's a strong effect, but you really do have to have other cards to make use of the effect.
Yeah, I agree, and I think as far as like these effects go, I think I'd much rather play the Annie, just because this can only be used on your own turn, and like I think this got an errata where it says the next spell you play this turn deals 1 bonus damage, so you can't activate this and then like pass into your opponent's turn and like have this ability still active. So that does make it far worse. I think if this had reaction attached to it, which I think it could have honestly, because it is just a one-time ability, I think this would be much better. But the fact that it only can be used on your turn makes it significantly worse. Yes, yeah. So I think for that reason, I am gonna give this. I don't know. I think I'm gonna give this a 5.
5. Okay, yeah. I was thinking 4 or 5 as well.
Yep. All right. Shakedown. 2 energy, 1 power, reaction. Choose an enemy unit to deal 6 to it unless its controller has you draw 2. Now I think this card was really like hyped up in the beginning, because it's kind of like you either remove something or get to draw 2 cards, which is really good in the early to mid game, I think. But when you go late game and you always want to kind of remove stuff. This is kind of just a removal spell that kind of lets you draw into other removal spells. So you're basically just paying 2 to draw 2, which is also not bad. But I think we've kind of seen with all the other removal spells in this game, I think this is just a bit too unreliable to be as good as it could be. But in like a kind of a simplified game state where you're happy with both drawing 2 and also dealing 6 damage, I think this is really good. And the fact that it is a reaction is definitely also very valuable. But I think it is just a bit too unreliable to be played in the main deck of every red deck.
Yeah, I agree there. It like both the effects are strong. Like dealing 6 for 2 at reaction speed is insane. But yeah, you generally it's like your opponent is giving the opponent agency is generally not a good thing because they're going to choose what they think or they hope is the best option for them. Though, like I think like these are both good options, right? So as long as you like, it has some restriction there. If like you were targeting something that you want to want to kill, but also like you're okay with drawing cards, I think this is where that card shines. Definitely good in decks that don't have very much draw power, as like it's just a way to draw cards. But red has like the most popular red decks are it's like Kaisa, right? So it's like Kaisa already can draw a bunch of cards in many other ways. So like I don't really see the point in including this. Yeah, I think it's an okay card. I like it, but it definitely has restrictions.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think I'm gonna give this I think I'm landing on a 5 for this as well.
I'll give it a 6. I think this is a card draw and card that for decks that aren't Kaisa, red decks that aren't Kaisa.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, Tryndamere Barbarian, 7 energy, 2 power, 8 might. When I conquer after an attack, if you assigned 5 or more excess damage to enemy units, you score 1 point.
This card's fun. I don't know how great it is, but being able to actually this is one of the cards that lets you score bonus points. So that's always fun. I don't know how good it is right now. It is definitely slow. You kind of pay a bunch of power and mana for it to just appear on the board and give your opponent a heads up of what you're planning on doing with it, which isn't great. But if you are able to like haste it in with I guess a Sun Disc or something else, that's cool. Or the classic Ride the Wind combo of being able to just like hit a battlefield, ride the wind over another battlefield, score like points in one turn is a nice fantasy. But yeah, I think it's like not great, but depending on the cards we get in the future could be great. Like I don't know how strong are like cards that earn you additional like extra points. Right now in the meta, they're not particularly strong, but in the future with a bit larger card pool where people are really able to take advantage of these things, maybe I can see it being better.
Yeah, and I think one of my like dream scenarios, or one of the things I'm looking forward to, and with the coming legends, is when we get a red-green legend, and you can have the Sun Disc and then play Charm to charm in like a token or whatever, and then play this and have it enter ready. I think that is something fun that I really want to do. And like, but I mean, the thing is that you kind of require your opponent to have not many units on the board, and unless this enters ready, it's really easy to play around. But this is definitely a card that's going to be really fun to. It's a really fun build around card, I think, in the future. So this is also one that I'm gonna have my eye on.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5 for now.
Yeah, I can agree with a 5. Okay, Vain Hunter, 4 energy, 1 power, 2 might, assault 3. If an opponent controls the battlefield, I enter ready, and when I conquer, you may pay 1 energy to return me to my owner's hand. I think this card is amazing. It basically reads like a 5 damage removal spell that also conquers, or a 6 energy removal spell that deals 5 that also conquers. Is how I read this. And then if you want to, and if you're kind of going for the final points, you can also just let this stay at the battlefield to kind of hold as well, to be able to hold as well. But also like one of the other powers of this is that you can play it off the baited hook in Darius, which I think, I mean, between this and Darius and also the Vi is why the baited hook is so good in Darius, because these are so like targets that are above rate in that deck. Like you kind of sacrifice a token and get this monster out, which is really good. Yeah, so I think this, like, for what it does, this card is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, the beta hook synergies is pretty cool, and just being able to like have this being an ever-present threat that keeps returning itself to back to your hand is also pretty.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a 7 or an 8. Yeah, I'm probably gonna give this. Yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8 actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7, but yeah, 7 or 8, just right ballpark.
Yep. All right, Vi Destructive. 2 energy, 1 power, 3 might. Ganking, recycle 1 from trash, and then give me +1 might this turn.
Yeah, I think this card's great. You can play it out for pretty cheaply, and it's generally like a late game finisher, right? Where you're able to recycle everything in your trash, make her huge, send her on the battlefield, take it, or the classic um, Vi the Wind combo, where you boost her up, ride the wind, take out one battlefield, have her gank over to the other battlefield.
Yeah.
It just it lets you like just have something waiting in the wings, right? Of just being like an ever-present threat that just gets stronger and stronger, kind of like a Mundo. Um, that you have to worry about. But you know, she is vulnerable, right? And if you are playing her on your back line early, there are many ways to kind of kill her before you get any value from her. And you can't use the effect on your enemy's turn, which is I think fair for a card like this. But yeah, I think that this card's pretty.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the, as you said, like the Ride the Wind combo with this is just like, it's such a cheap and efficient kind of game finisher, because it is just 4 energy, like swing for 12, 13, 14, both battlefields. And the fact that this has ganking is like the real power of this card. I mean, the recycle of course is nice, and then the big kind of drawback is that you can't use the ability on your opponent's turn, and then this basically dies to anything on your opponent's turn. So, but as an aggressive card and as a finisher, this card is just amazing.
I think I'm going to give this a 7.
Yeah, I can agree with the 7 as well. Alright, Immortal Phoenix. 3 energy, 1 power, 3 might, assault 2. When you kill a unit with a spell, you may pay 1 energy and 1 fury power to play me from your trash. And this card is very interesting. I think it's a really fun card to play around, but it is also very reliant on you having removal spells and also like being able to, I mean, you could also play around with it, like playing a Hidden Blade and like kill this to draw 2 cards and then just use the ability to get it back right away. That also does work. But if you're playing it in like a spell deck, this is very interesting to play around. But if you're doing that, you kind of want to have the seal out, because having to pay a power each time does get very expensive after a while. But I think this card is very good for what it does. But of course it is a bit weaker on the defense, but the fact that you could just keep getting it back it's a very fun card to play around with.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. This is like my favorite type of card in card games. So it's like a super value oriented card. This is very strong attacker. You know, 5 might is nothing to sneeze at. And you know, it does get kind of expensive, so definitely if you're going to run this, you probably want to run seals to kind of pay for that recurring power cost. But it does feel good to just be able to always have something, you know, in the wings to just kind of bring out. Also, if the red decks typically want to be running, you know, the whole removal suite, which is also pretty, you know, so you're not really, there's no like deck building costs that you're really incurring here beyond just the seals. Which, you know, you might want to be running anyway, and just being able to get these back every time you kill something is pretty strong.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I mean the only, and also I will say additionally is that this is very interesting to play around with the Sun Disc, because then this can enter ready as well. But you do have to play like the spell you use to kind of get this back has to be the second one you play, because you can't activate the Sun Disc at reaction speed. But that is also a very interesting play, because I mean it is a bit slow because you can't attack with it right away. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a 7 as well.
Yeah, 7 sounds good.
Yeah. I think like 90% of our cards are 7s, but yes, it's just like
yeah. It's the good cards are 7, right?
Yeah, basically. All right, Kadragrin the Infernal. 9 energy, 2 power, 9 might. When you play me, draw 1 for each of your mighty.
This is like, I like this card. This is like, it's cool art, you know, it's a big strong unit and it's pretty good effect, but you know, generally you're only going to ever be able to play this in like hard ramp decks, or if you're playing Volibear Aurora, right? Being able to draw cards is great. You're at least drawing one card because this card itself is mighty. Um, so replacing itself is good, but 9 and having a 9 might is strong. But like also at that power level, like to really get the effect like that really impacts, like replacing itself is nice, but you generally want to be drawing more than one with this, which is hit and miss. So I really this would only see play in the Volibear Aurora deck, or if there's some kind of Dragon Synergy deck in the future, maybe there. But yeah, I don't think it's particularly great, even though as cool as this card is.
Yeah, I mean, I think this fills a very important slot in the Volibear deck as being like a very good draw card engine. I mean, you do draw not an engine, but just like a good draw card, because that is something that the Volibear deck struggles with. But also, like as you said, in the future when we get more dragon support and we have like a dedicated dragon deck, I think this is going to be a very important piece in that deck as well. But I mean, it is only playable, I think, in Volibear as of now, so for that it can't get the highest score, but I do think this card fills a very important slot in that deck in specific.
Yeah, I agree there. I'm probably going to go with a 6 for this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, just because of what role it plays in Volibear, I'm actually going to give this a 7.
Okay.
Alright, moving on to the busted 4-drop in the game. Kai'Sa Survivor, 4 energy, 4 might, accelerate, and when I conquer, draw 1. Now this card, the fact that this doesn't have a power cost attached to the base cost of this card is just incredible. And the ability to just immediately replace itself with also having the possibility to do it again later is just amazing. Yeah, I think this card is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best red units in the game. No power cost is insane for what this does. You let you draw multiple cards. If you can, you're pretty much guaranteed to at least get one card off this because you're able to accelerate it and hit a battlefield. So you get a point and a card, not bad. Yeah, and just the threat of just like letting these Kaisas hit to kind of refill the hand is also pretty strong. This is like one of the best 4-drops in the game in my opinion. So
yeah, I
just
agree.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yep, I'll give it an 8 as well.
Yeah. Alright, Seal of Rage. 0 energy, 1 power, and then reaction speed, exhaust me to add 1 fury power. I mean, yeah, I mean, the basically all of the seals are gonna have the same effect, and they're gonna do the same thing. I mean, not all of them are as playable, just because of the decks that are currently, like, out now. But I think the red rune is particularly useful in like decks like, for example, the Annie decks where you want to play this where you want to play the Phoenix, for example. I think this is very good. But I think as far as like seals go, it doesn't really have like a very high ceiling, but it is just it's a huge like comfort card to just have out early. But I mean, and then if you don't see it, I mean, you could still have a good game, but just having this out early on just makes the game run so smoother.
Yep, I totally agree there. I think red is one of the colors that definitely gets more value out of the seals because a lot of their additional costs, like their accelerates, their like the discard decks, playing them from the graveyard, like the flame chompers and the phoenixes, all these recurring costs like cost red power. So this is like these are particularly suited for using those. I think that seals, it really depends on the deck, whether that you'll see the value, because the opportunity cost is like drawing another card, because this is like you play this, you're essentially playing a card down. But if you are paying a lot of power costs, this over the course of the game will save you so much mana. And the games where you have seals feel so much better than you don't, right? Or when you see them in your deck for those really high power intensity decks.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's hard to rate the seals. I think sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not.
Yeah, I agree. And like as you said, it's really good to have them, to have one, but once you start drawing the second and the third one, they kind of become redundant. And if you don't have an efficient way to kind of recycle those for something else, then they become significantly worse. But I think I'm just like, as a baseline for seals in general, I think I'm just going to give them all like a 5 or 6 maybe.
Yeah, I agree there. The other thing that's weird about them is that running one means that like you probably like it's realistic that you might not see it in the game, right? But then like running more than one so you can see that more often also like doesn't feel great when you're top decking, right? So it's a weird spot to be in.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on to Volibear Furious. 10 energy, 2 power, 9 might, deflect 2. When I attack, deal 5 damage split among any number of enemy units here.
Big boy.
The big boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very strong effect. Deflect 2 is insane. Being able to just nuke something or multiple things at a battlefield is also very strong. 10 might and 2 power is insanely expensive. The only place I see this being played is in the Volibear deck, where you have to have one of the Volibears, and this is the cheaper of the two. I could see this in like a Volibear Aurora deck too, but even then, there's probably like, because this is like an aggressive oriented card, there's like you might as well, if you're gonna cheat it out anyway, play the bigger one and just get the draw from it, because you also need the draw. Yeah, I feel like I like the card, but I also don't see it played outside of Volibear, where you kind of have to play it, or at least one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And like the big plus about playing this in Volibear is that of course you do get it in the champion zone, and you don't really want to play the other one because that costs 12. And if you're at 11, and if you're at 11, then you can't play it. So this is just a bit more flexible like that. But also you can pair this with Confront, which is going to make it enter ready, which is very relevant because then you get the effect off right away. And as I said, Deflect 2 is just very good because like nothing can remove, I mean basically no cards can remove this off one effect, so they do have to pay a bunch of Deflect if they want to remove this with ability damage or like spell damage. But as I said, it is only playable in Volibear, so for that reason it can't go as high as it could otherwise. But I think I'm comfortable with giving this a 7 just because of what it does for the Volibear.
Yeah, I'll probably give it a 6. I think it's very strong, but it's just so expensive. It's like it's even the Volibear decks, like it's like you might not even be able to play it, like depending on the state of the game, or like have the tempo to play it, right? It's just, it's low.
Yeah, you know what? I can actually agree with the 6 for this. I agree with that actually. But okay, moving on to the final 3 cards. We have Annie, Fiery, 5 energy, 1 power, 4 might. Your spells and abilities deal 1 bonus damage. Now I think the real kicker about this card is that it also buffs ability damage. So that means your for example, your Iron Ballistas are going to deal more damage, and like your other like ability damage cards are going to deal more damage. And the fact that this also works on your opponent's turn, like as opposed to the Ravenborn Tome, the gear that we just saw, just makes this a lot better in that way. But I mean, the big downside is that this can also be removed by removal spells. It is a 4 might unit, so it can't get removed by everything. You kind of have to deal damage to this twice unless you hit it with a Void Seeker. But I mean, you don't really want to attack with this. You kind of want to just keep it in the back to keep accumulating value with it. But for what it does for the Annie deck, I think this card is very, very good.
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of torn on this card. I like the effect a lot, but 5 energy and 1 power is pretty expensive, especially for only a 4 might unit. And because it is a unit that's sitting on the battlefield, it's very vulnerable, right? It'll die to Falling Star, so it'll die to a Charm, it'll die to a Singularity, like anything that hits the base. So it's pretty vulnerable in that sense. And because it is expensive, you're generally you're trading so much tempo for like a future payoff, and it's just so risky. And I think that in this deck, card can shine in a much slower deck where you're able to control the pace of the game, remove their threats, slow their scoring speed, and where you can kind of run them out of threats and then drop this, where you're able to just really lock down the board. But even then, at that point, would you need this card? To kind of do that. So it's if you can stick this card's amazing. But I think the odds of sticking against some of the tier 1 decks are much lower than than meets the eye. So I think that in a world where this can thrive, it's good. But I think right now for me, I don't know how good this is.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I mean, it is only really playable in Annie, because if you play it out on curve, you still get 2 runes to actually use it right away.
Yeah,
So
that's
that is
true.
good, but I mean, yeah, as you said, it is very vulnerable, and in a game where there's charms and falling stars and not confronts, but challenges running around everywhere, this does get significantly worse. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna give this. I really like Annie, and I really like the Annie champions. I think I'm gonna give it a 6, but it probably deserves to be a
Okay.
bit lower than that.
Yeah, I was thinking 5 or 6.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely playable. And right, if they don't have the answer, then it's like, okay, then they're in a world of hurt.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Firestorm. Yeah, so these 3 final cards, like the Annie and this, and then the next one is like those are the exclusive cards from the Proving Ground set, or the Proving Grounds box. But this is Firestorm, 6 energy, 1 power, deal 3 to all enemy units at a battlefield.
Yeah. This is an incredibly expensive card. What it does, dealing 3 to all enemy units at a battlefield seems pretty decent, right? Like, but I'd expect that to be much lower in cost. 6 energy and a power is insane because most of the time this is only killing turn 1, maybe some turn 2 plays. Like that's it, and everything else it'll deal the damage, but you still need to send units in or spend other cards because you're still trading up into it. So you're like, it doesn't really get you the effect that you'd expect for something so expensive. If you're able to like make this cheaper somehow, or maybe I could see it being useful. It was printed to be a weaker card because it is part of the ground set, so like I understand that mentality there. Um, Being able to take care of a lot of tokens is good, but it's not action speed, so you're essentially spending your entire turn to do only this and attacking units.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think this.
Yeah, I agree. And like as you said, it is played in the Proving Ground set, so it is kind of designed to be a bit weaker than the main line, like the main set cards. And I think if you want this kind of effect, you'd just rather pay 2 extra energy and play the Annie signature spell or the signature unit, the Tibbers, because that also deals 3 damage at battlefields, but it deals damage at both battlefields. And you also develop a 8 might unit for it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that is just, I mean, there's not really a reason to play this over that. Unless, like you said, you could, like, there might be some world where you could combo this off with a Raging Firebrand to play it for 1, which could be kind of sweet. But I mean, outside of that, I think for now this is just way too slow. And the fact that it doesn't have action as well just makes it, there's just way too many other options that are just better than this.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give this a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. Alright, and the final card in red, or in Fury, is Incinerate, 2 energy, action, deal 2 to a unit at a battlefield. Now I think this is, I mean again it is a Proving Grounds card, so this is a bit powered down compared to the rest of the cards, because I mean the immediate comparison you get with this is to Hextech Ray, which for 1 energy less it deals 1 damage more, but it also costs a power, which is, I mean that's, you're paying that every single day. But I think as far as like a heavy spell deck, this could be like one of your like last spells you add to the deck just to get more interaction going, and it does get significantly better if you pair it with cards like the Ravenborn Tome and also like the Void Gate Battlefield. It gets a lot better, but for 2 energy you could be doing a lot better than just dealing 2 units, and it also only hits battlefields.
Yeah, 100% agree. The restrictions on it are make it a little bit weaker than you would expect. I almost wish it just was 1 energy, right? And then for 2, and that way it's like you get the 1 extra damage with the power cost. But I mean, it makes sense for being 2. I definitely think they're probably going to fill your curve out with other things, but in a very spell heavy deck, this might see some play. But still, like, it's really only going to take care of turn 1 plays, so it's not super useful.
Yeah, I agree. Alright, and that is actually the final card in Fury. We are gonna do all the rest of the colors after a while in the different videos, but for now I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and then I'll see you next time, and until then, take care and bye bye. But before we go, let's actually give this a rating first. So you, sir, what do you rate this card?
I'm probably going to rate this a 3 or 4. It's not great, but it's playable.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a 3 as well, just because, I mean, it is weak and it is designed to be that way, but I think as we get more cards, I think this card is gonna get power crept really quickly, and I mean it already is. So as long when we get 1 or 2 more removal spells at this, I think this card is just gonna never get played again. All right. And with that, we're saying goodbye.